I am 37 years old, and for a decade, my life was intertwined with Jane's, my wife, who is 36. Together, we built a life that, for 99% of its duration, felt utterly normal, wonderfully happy, and remarkably free of major problems. We had our routines, our shared jokes, and that quiet understanding that only comes from years of genuine connection. We both worked, we made time for each other, and we were truly content in our little world with our two amazing children, an 8-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. It wasn't the fairy tale, perhaps, but it was our fairy tale, grounded in mutual respect and, or so I believed, unwavering trust. Then, about a year ago, the foundation of that world imploded. I discovered Jane was having an affair. The man was a colleague of hers, someone I'd actually met a few times at company functions, a face that now haunts my nightmares. The betrayal wasn't just devastating. It was a soul-crushing obliteration of everything I thought was real. Every memory, every shared laugh, every intimate moment was instantly tainted, replayed in my mind through a lens of deceit. I loved her with every fiber of my being, and I had truly believed our marriage was built on a foundation strong enough to withstand anything. The shock was visceral, leaving me feeling hollowed out, as if a vital part of me had been ripped away without a trace. We entered a whirlwind of therapy. Couples counseling, individual sessions. Jane ended the affair, she said, expressing deep remorse. There were tears, promises of change, desperate pleas for forgiveness, and for the sake of our innocent children, whose lives I desperately wanted to protect from the wreckage, I agreed to try and make it work. I clung to the hope that the woman I married, the woman I loved, was still there, beneath the layers of deception. I wanted to believe in redemption, in the possibility of healing from such a profound wound, for them, if not entirely for myself. But the past year has been nothing short of hell. Every single day, I'm haunted by those images of her with him. They flicker behind my eyes when I close them, whisper in my ears when I'm alone, a relentless torment. Every casual laugh she shares now, every gentle touch, every late-night phone call, they all trigger a fresh wave of doubt, making me question her sincerity, her motives, her very presence. Our intimacy, once a source of comfort and connection, has completely vanished. It's simply non-existent, a barren landscape where warmth used to be. I feel like a hollow shell of my former self, just going through the motions of life, an actor in a play where I've forgotten my lines. Jane keeps trying to fix things, but her efforts feel hollow, like a forced performance she's merely enduring, not genuinely feeling. The weight of her past actions is a constant, suffocating presence, a chilling silence that settles into my very bones. Then, as if life hadn't dealt enough cruel blows, came another devastating turn. Recently, Jane received a serious medical diagnosis. It's not immediately life-threatening, thankfully. But the doctors made it clear that it will require extensive, grueling treatment, multiple invasive surgeries, and a long, arduous recovery period. This diagnosis will impact her deeply, not just physically, as her body will be pushed to its limits, but also profoundly emotionally, as she grapples with fear, uncertainty, and the immense challenges ahead. The news hit me with a cold, detached clarity, a reminder that even in the midst of our brokenness,
external forces could still inflict new wounds.
Here's where the true agony of my decision began, where I faced the brutal intersection of past betrayal and present tragedy. Here's where I might truly be the asshole. I looked at Jane, the woman who had shared my life for a decade, now fragile and facing an unimaginable battle, and I told her I couldn't be her emotional support system through this. The words felt like ash in my mouth, heavy and bitter, but they were true. How could I offer the intimate comfort she craved, the unwavering emotional rock she desperately needed, when I was still reeling from the devastating emotional fallout of her affair? My own heart felt like a shattered mosaic, each piece a sharp shard of pain from what she had done, making it impossible to form the seamless bond of support she required. I clarified my stance, trying to soften the blow with practicality. I promised her, unequivocally, that I would ensure she had the absolute best medical care available. I would make certain our children were well taken care of, shielded as much as possible from this new storm. She wouldn't have to worry about a single financial burden. Every bill, every cost would be covered, no matter the expense. I even offered to help coordinate appointments, manage the logistics of her treatment, arrange transportation, anything that involved practical, tangible support. My commitment to her physical well-being and our children's stability remained, but I drew the line at emotional intimacy. I simply couldn't be there to hold her hand, to wipe her tears, or to offer comfort in the way a loving spouse should, because the raw, bleeding wound of her betrayal hadn't healed. It festered, making genuine emotional closeness an impossibility. Her reaction was immediate and heartbreaking, though in that moment I felt a detached sense of irony. She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, accusing me of being cruel, of abandoning her precisely when she needed me most, when she was at her most vulnerable. It was a familiar pattern. Tears, accusations, a desperate plea for a return to normalcy that no longer existed. But this time, her desperation was amplified by fear, and that was undeniable. The calls from her family started almost immediately. They echoed her accusations, condemning me as heartless, claiming I was using her diagnosis as a convenient excuse to finally leave her. They threw the sacred vows of marriage back in my face, chanting, "For better or worse," like a mantra, asserting that I was failing her during the most challenging, the most worse period of her life. A powerful current of guilt washed over me, threatening to pull me under. A part of me, the part that remembered the woman I married, the vibrant, joyful mother of my children, a woman now struggling and in unimaginable pain, felt an immense, suffocating weight. This was Jane, my Jane, suffering. How could I not rush to her side? But then, the other part, the raw, bleeding wound of betrayal that festered beneath my skin, recoiled. It simply couldn't bring itself to care enough to offer that kind of intimate, vulnerable emotional support. It was a chasm I couldn't bridge, a wall built from 1,000 shattered promises. I felt utterly trapped between the phantom of my former love and the harsh reality of my current brokenness. My heart was a battleground, torn between empathy and self-preservation.
My decision hung in the air between us, a heavy, unspoken accusation. It was a line drawn in the sand, etched not in anger, but in the exhaustion of a soul worn thin. In my opinion, her diagnosis, as terrifying as it was, couldn't erase the gaping wound of her betrayal. I truly felt it would be harder on both of us if I were physically there, pretending to offer comfort, knowing deep down that I wouldn't be able to forgive her once her treatment concluded. It felt like prolonging the inevitable, a cruel charade that would only inflict more pain in the long run. My obligation to her, the sacred bond of marriage, felt as though it had unequivocally ended the moment she chose to shatter our vows. She had her family and friends. I knew this for a fact, so she wasn't truly alone. They would be there offering the solace I simply could not. I tried to explain this to her, to them, but my words were lost in a storm of accusation and emotional blackmail. "You don't believe her diagnosis, do you?" was a question I anticipated, even as it wasn't explicitly voiced. And honestly, for a moment, a cynical part of me did wonder. Her family had been relentless in trying to get me to reconsider from the moment I left, calling, texting, even showing up at my sister's place. The thought crossed my mind that perhaps this devastating news was being leveraged, a desperate ploy to draw me back in. It was a cruel thought, I admit, born from a year of constant doubt and the crushing weight of her deceit. But I pushed past it, demanding proof which she provided, confirming the harsh reality of her illness. Still, that initial flicker of suspicion, however fleeting, underscored the depth of the trust that had been irrevocably broken. And then came the inevitable question, implicitly or explicitly from friends and family. "Why didn't you try harder? Our marriage looked so good. What did you do wrong?" It was infuriating. I had to continually push back against the common assumption that infidelity is always a symptom of a failing marriage. Let me reiterate, our marriage was good. We prided ourselves on open communication, even if it meant uncomfortable truths. We made a point of having a sit-down talk every month to discuss anything that might be wrong, any small concerns or unspoken frustrations. This wasn't a rigid once-a-month time slot. We talked as often as needed, but we made sure that at least once a month we would sit with each other and genuinely check in, see how we were feeling, and address any issues. We were solid. She didn't cheat because of a problem between us. She cheated because she chose to take a chance on a quick thrill, a momentary escape, despite knowing that infidelity was a fundamental deal-breaker for me. The most painful truth was that she never even planned to tell me. The confession only came out because her friend, burdened by her own guilt from the joint trip, threatened to expose them both. I had demanded to see their messages after Jane finally confessed, and the cold reality was laid bare. This wasn't a moment of weakness, a regrettable mistake quickly regretted. This was a calculated act of betrayal, and the confession was born from external pressure, not genuine remorse. My obligation to her, the very core of my marital vows, felt utterly extinguished the moment she made that conscious choice. I truly believe it would be unfair to both of us to prolong this charade. I still hold a deep affection for the woman I thought I married, the one I built a family with, but the reality of who she revealed herself to be, the callous disregard for our vows, has irrevocably changed everything. My heart simply isn't in it anymore to provide the profound emotional comfort she now needs. I am not trying to punish her. I am simply trying to heal and protect what little is left of myself. My heart, once a battleground of conflicting emotions, now simply felt weary. I still cared deeply about the woman I thought I had married, the vibrant, loving Jane from a decade ago, the mother of my children. That ghost of a woman still held a piece of my affection, but the reality of who she had revealed herself to be, a person capable of such calculated deceit, of risking our entire life for a fleeting thrill, and then showing such entitlement in her desperation, that person I no longer loved. And because of that stark truth, I felt it would be profoundly unfair to both of us for me to be there, physically present but emotionally distant. My touch would be a lie, my comforting words hollow, and my presence a constant reminder of the chasm between us. It was not a punishment I sought, but simply the cessation of my own pain, the beginning of my own healing process.
My heart just isn't in it anymore to provide the profound emotional comfort she now needs. The world outside, however, didn't understand this nuanced agony. The pressure from Jane's family intensified. Their calls became more frequent, their messages more desperate, their accusations sharper. They painted me as the villain, heartless and abandoning, twisting my logical support into a cruel weapon. Man up, they'd say, go to him. Even my own circle of friends found themselves split, caught in the crossfire of empathy for Jane's illness and outrage over her betrayal. Some urged me to fulfill my vows, regardless of the past. Others quietly understood the impossibility of supporting someone who had so fundamentally broken the trust. This division, even among those closest to me, deepened my sense of isolation. I felt trapped, not just by my decision, but by the world's expectation of an emotional output I simply no longer possessed. It was this very internal turmoil, this agonizing split between what I felt I should do and what my broken spirit could do, that led me here to Reddit. I understand that many people online post fabricated stories, seeking attention or karma. Let me be unequivocally clear, I am not one of those people. I am not looking for internet points, nor am I fabricating personal details. I posted here on a throwaway account precisely because when some of your own friends, those who trust, tell you that you're unreasonable, that you're cruel, that you're failing, it strips away your ability to trust your own judgment. I desperately needed a neutral third-party assessment. I was hoping for valuable insight, an objective verdict from strangers unburdened by personal ties. And in that, many people in the comment section truly delivered. Their perspectives, their own experiences, provided a clarity that was impossible to find in my fractured reality. In the end, my decision stands firm. My obligation to Jane in the deepest, most intimate sense concluded the moment she chose to betray our marriage. While I certainly don't believe anyone deserves to go through a serious illness alone, and I am genuinely sorry this has happened to her, her diagnosis, in my opinion, does not change the fundamental situation between us. It would be a disservice to both of us for me to be physically present in a relationship that has, for all intents and purposes, ceased to exist emotionally. It would be prolonging the inevitable, creating a false hope for her and continued pain for me. She has her family and friends for emotional support. I am not trying to punish her. My heart simply isn't in it anymore to provide that kind of intimate emotional support. I am choosing myself, choosing to heal from the profound wound she inflicted, even if that choice means being labeled as the asshole by some. The verdict I seek from this community is not absolution, but rather a reflection on the complex nature of human obligation when trust is irrevocably shattered.
This story, like many profound human experiences, challenges our fundamental understanding of obligation, forgiveness, and self-preservation. On one hand, the traditional vows of marriage, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, stand as a pillar of unconditional support. Jane faces a serious diagnosis, a situation that evokes natural empathy and compassion. The very idea of abandoning a spouse in such a time feels instinctively cruel to many. However, the protagonist's core dilemma is equally compelling. When the bedrock of trust has been shattered by infidelity, when the emotional wellspring has run dry due to repeated wounds, can one truly offer genuine comfort without sacrificing their own well-being? Ethically, this case brings forth a clash between different moral frameworks. Is the protagonist bound by a utilitarian ethic, where the greatest good is achieved by maximizing Jane's comfort, even at their own emotional expense? Or is this a case for a deontological perspective, where certain principles, like the sanctity of personal boundaries and the right to heal from profound betrayal, take precedence, regardless of the immediate emotional consequences for others? The Reddit community, in its judgment of NTA,
not the asshole, largely sided with the latter, emphasizing the protagonist's right to protect their mental and emotional health after a significant breach of trust. They recognized that true support cannot be coerced or given from a place of emotional devastation. Psychologically, the protagonist's journey reveals the deep and lasting trauma of infidelity. It's not just a single act, but a wound that festers, impacting intimacy, trust, and self-worth. Their inability to provide emotional support is not necessarily a desire for punishment, but a symptom of their own unresolved pain. The burden of guilt they feel is real, yet it conflicts with the undeniable truth of their emotional depletion. This highlights the complex interplay between compassion for another and the critical need for personal healing and self-preservation. The story forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the most loving act for oneself, and perhaps for the other person in the long run, is to step back.
When this story was posted on Reddit's r/amItheasshole subreddit, it sparked a massive wave of discussion, drawing over 20,000 upvotes and more than 2,000 comments. The community's response was overwhelmingly in favor of the protagonist. The verdict was a resounding NTA, or not the asshole. Users overwhelmingly sympathized with the protagonist's stance, arguing that infidelity fundamentally alters the marital contract and absolves the betrayed partner of traditional obligations beyond basic human decency. Many emphasized that emotional support, unlike financial or logistical aid, cannot be forced or given from a place of deep hurt. Common themes in the comments highlighted the double standard often placed on victims of infidelity, where they are expected to forgive and forget for the sake of appearances or family pressure. Users strongly resonated with the idea that the protagonist's emotional well-being was paramount, and that forcing themselves to provide intimate comfort would be detrimental to their own healing. There was widespread agreement that while Jane's diagnosis was tragic, it did not erase her choices. Many urged the protagonist to prioritize self-preservation, emphasizing that true love had been irrevocably broken by Jane's actions, making emotional intimacy impossible. The community largely rejected the notion that the "for better or worse" vow applies unconditionally after a betrayal of this magnitude.
This story is a powerful reminder that, while life throws unexpected challenges our way, including devastating diagnoses, personal choices, especially those that break fundamental trust, carry profound and lasting consequences. The protagonist's journey highlights the agonizing balance between compassion and self-preservation, and the complex nature of healing after betrayal. Their choice, supported by a vast online community, underscores the idea that a vow once broken can irrevocably alter the landscape of love and obligation. What do you think? Was the protagonist justified in their decision, or should they have prioritized their wife's immediate needs above their own pain? We want to hear your honest thoughts and perspective on this incredibly challenging life choice. Share your verdict and reasoning in the comments below. If this narrative resonated with you and you appreciate exploring real-life dilemmas and their intricate consequences, please give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Stories Life Choices and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the human experience. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to reading your comments.